Utilize space. The DIY movement is like, I think, one of the coolest ways of dealing with a space that maybe is overlooked or forgotten and not currently used by people. Like a lot of skaters will look at, you look at the city a completely different way when you're used to sliding around on four wheels and a little bit of wood.
Welcome to Color Me Crazy, the podcast where we dive into the vibrant world of creativity and art. I'm your host, Akai, a multidisciplinary artist, and today we're chatting with an incredible creator, Henry Hartman, a US-born urban designer. He's a photographer based in Barcelona with a master's in urban design for healthy cities. And Henry combines this love for design and photography and skating to capture the beauty of the urban life. He specifically focuses a lot in the DIY skate parks to designing inclusive spaces. Let's dive into his journey. How are you?
Thanks, Scott. No, I'm swell. I'm super stoked to be on here and to chat with you.
I can't wait to hear all about your story and your creative process too. So how did your journey as an urban designer and photographer begin?
I started out, I'm from Seattle. I'm repping KXP today because go Seattle.
Nice.
But I started out taking some classes at university. I had a bit of a green streak. We're a little bit like kind of earth huggery up in Seattle. And so I always knew I wanted to do something that would be good for the environment. And as I got to school and got to college, it became more and more clear to me that there was so much work that needed to be done in the built environment. And through that, I started kind of diving into would I go architecture? Would I go what kind of route? Landscape architecture. And I decided on urban design. Kind of was at the intersection of a lot of my interests. Just public spaces are such an important part of our everyday lives, and we navigate them every day. The second you walk out the door, you're being impacted by someone's design and someone's work. And there's such a huge potential to make a positive difference in the environment. The climate crisis that we're facing, the little things add up to pretty significant changes, especially when you look at some of the more sustainable mobility side of things and the aspects that affect our health as humans.
That's amazing.
I guess that's the motivation behind it. But it was a series of classes through university that I started just getting more and more into it. And then it brought me here to Barcelona.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but your dad is also a photographer.
Yeah. So I grew up surrounded by photography. Before he had me, I was the kind of wrench in the works, but he was doing a really cool fine art photography career. And I grew up surrounded by Polaroids, and his work, the camera was kind of always around. And whether consciously or unconsciously, I was kind of learning a lot of the kind of the ropes of photography. He's definitely my biggest influence, and kind of I continue to learn from him today.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. Like growing up surrounded by photography, and then it's like the inspiration totally.
Yeah.
And exploring
for a while, I was too cool for it though. It was funny.
Really?
I mean, I loved it. I didn't see the value in it until now. Now I really see the value in it. But, it was funny the way that I initially was like, oh, it's just like kind of the default what my dad does, and I thought it was cool and was curious, but not super into it. And then in college, I started getting very, very into it, and now we have this really great kind of camaraderie and connection through the craft, which is fun.
And then you ended up in Barcelona because of your master's, or?
Yeah, so I grew up in Seattle, and I went to university at the University of Washington for undergrad, and so I was kind of keen on adventuring, seeing some of the world. I'd done some traveling, but had never lived anywhere other than Seattle. So I was looking at master's programs, and this one here in Barcelona, I never had been here, but it sounded amazing. I'd studied some of the Superblock programs they have here, some of the Urbanism. The history is obviously quite extensive, and so it had come up in a lot of my classes, and I was kind of curious, and I saw the opportunity and went for it.
And how has living in Barcelona like influenced your design and photography? Because Barcelona is it has its own like, enchanting, the city's like so artistic, and how did this influence in your work?
I mean, I think you're part of it in some ways. Like, I think one of the things that for me, Barcelona really inspires me through the people I meet, like the people who come across. The city itself is obviously beautiful. It's unlike anything that we have in the States. The history, the layers of history that they've built up over time is amazing, and how they've been kind of not stuck in their historic past. They haven't been fallen into the trap of just pure preservation. They experiment. The planners are really good at recognizing the evolving needs of the city, and whether it was like the Plan Serda back in the East to build the Champlain, kind of recognizing the need for more space and better air quality and bigger streets, to now there's the Superblock movement where they're reevaluating the use of space in the streets. And kind of all of that combined with amazing people I meet here in Barcelona, I don't know, it's very much broadened my eyes and completely got me out of, I had some kind of preconceived just biases from like, I'm living in Seattle and this is kind of how you build a bike lane. This is what a street looks like, and seeing kind of all the different variations and ways that the built environment can manifest. I think it's a city that has a lot of great examples of alternatives.
In Barcelona, like the public areas are very well thought of, also because of tourists and, everything. It's so like you can bike anywhere or even skate anywhere. Like, isn't it in Barcelona that, Ingeniero Civil, that built it, he was like a skater? Isn't it in Barcelona?
I think so.
I think it is.
So my understanding was that the reason why Barcelona ended up with so many amazing skate spots in the city is for the 92 Olympics, when they did this massive urban renewal project. They were trying to make the city more accessible, like the streets and because they were adding a lot of these accessibility improvements, that added a lot of the banks and the kind of structures that are really skatable.
Barcelona is also built in some way that people can move around like easily. I feel like it makes the city just taste better, and like, I don't know, it gives like a different flavor to the city, being able to walk and use like public transportation and stuff. And what inspires you to focus in like designing like healthier and more, functional cities and spaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main impetus for my what drives me to make cities healthier is the broad health effects that are kind of like the current health crisis in cities. It's not necessarily very apparent, but the effects of air pollution on the general population, like globally, I think it's like 6.6 million deaths per year can be attributed to diseases that come from air quality issues. And then it's a very blanket, like it's a massive problem when you kind of think about it globally. But especially, I mean, you said Barcelona here, it's really interesting because we have amazing alternatives for moving around the city. Like they're doing a lot better job with the bike lanes and bike infrastructure nowadays, but the metro is incredible, and the walkability, generally you can take care of your daily needs without really having to walk more than a couple blocks to get groceries, or to even getting across the city to see a friend. There's viable alternatives to cars. But that being said, the car and the moto culture here too are very pervasive. And for a city as dense as Barcelona to have as many car drivers, the air quality takes quite the hit. And so that's what the Superblock project, I find that so inspiring, because it's taking that issue head on, but it's only one piece of the puzzle of solving it, because it's all these different layers of, there's the physical space of like what transportation systems you allow to take up space on the streets themselves, but then there's the cultural element, and kind of pretty much, I guess, all these problems and issues stacked up together. I think looking at urban planning from a lens of how you can make it healthier, ends up by making it healthier, making the city a much more enjoyable and safe place, and then as well as addressing the climate crisis. So it's a lens of thinking that ends up having all these amazing kind of positive effects afterwards when you build things with that lens.
Yeah, of course. And can you tell us more about this project? Is it a project that is currently in Barcelona?
So, the Superblock project? Yeah, so there's a couple of them that were built. Now it's become this kind of interesting, it's stuck in political quagmire of sorts, where they're just, the current mayor, the last mayor was really pro Superblock, and now they've politicized it. And so the current mayor isn't building any additional ones, but it's these 3x3 streets. When you take the street grid of Barcelona and you draw 3x3 blocks, they reduce the internal traffic on those streets to just local access only. So there's almost no car traffic on them. And that result is like, you can have people biking, people walking through the middle of the street, and even, the delivery vehicles can still use that space. And it makes it easier for them to deliver because of that. So there's all these positive benefits for those specific areas. The problem right now is only a couple areas have received that Superblock kind of design. And so it's leading to some gentrification issues. And so the project, because it kind of lost momentum, it's stuck right now, and they've packaged it into, the planners have repackaged it into this plan called the Green Axis, and they're kind of looking at how they can add more greenery, which has a lot of health effects, and reduces space for cars, using that Superblock model, but kind of readjusting it and rebranding it almost, because it's become less of a design issue and more of a political issue. But
wow, interesting.
It's that there's a lot there. I still trying to wrap my head around all the different complexities of it. But from afar, it's the Superblocks are one of the biggest reasons I came here. That's something that a lot of urban designers worldwide are really stoked on, because it's Barcelona making significant changes in parts of their city to address a lot of these issues kind of all at once.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. That's so cool. Such an interesting project. Hopefully more cities in the world like get to do these projects like more like consciously, and like for like global warming and like all these things.
Totally.
And how does like, I don't know, like what excites you the most about working with art, design in the community? Like we have talked a few times, and I feel like you have so much passion for like how the urban space works, and like designing it, and just like sitting down and sketching and having these new ideas and stuff. And like what is the thing that excites you about these things?
I mean, I think I'm a very optimistic person, and the potential to make such a positive impact on the world, or even just the lives of the people that whatever the scale of the project, whether it's just a street corner, a parking space, or up to like the size of a city, like the positive impact you can have on the people that cross that little patch of our world is so great. And so that's kind of what really, when it's a little bit like, I don't know, tougher or hard work, there's times where it's a lot of work putting all these parts together, or in working with the community also. Like it's got to start from the community.
Yeah.
But like if you like don't have that like aspect, it's the projects kind of fall flat every time, or they won't have that soul. Instead of it being a place, it'll just be a space, because you won't have the support of the people that are using it.
Yeah, definitely. And I was looking at your work, and you focus a lot in your photography with urban ecosystems and like overlooked city like details and stuff. Like how did it construct this like interest for the city and like different angles of the city, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think pretty much, I mean, everything in our built environment is this just not necessarily arbitrary decision, but it's a decision that someone made, whether it's the buildings themselves, the width of the street, the curbs, the graffiti on the walls, like someone's taking the time to modify their environment, or like little weird parklet, you see parklet benches, or I don't know, even just someone putting a chair on the sidewalk with like a little plant next to it, and then an ashtray. Like nothing huge, just like these little tiny touches of how people modify their environment, I think is really fascinating. And with my photography, I think it's another lens for me to understand cities, like, and that benefits my design work, is every kind of, it all grows together, whether I'm taking photos just to try and to pretty much make sense of this crazy world, this crazy city that I'm exploring right now. It all kind of ends up pushing forward my understanding of the world and how cities kind of work. So it's kind of stems, I guess, from that, just curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you also mentioned later on when we were talking that your dad was visiting you and you guys went to do some photography in the street, but you guys went to like not the touristy area. Like how did that go? Like the photography outside, and just like, you know, that curiosity of like what is really going on in Barcelona, not like the tourist view, but like the local view.
Yeah, no, I think my dad and I are very similar in terms of our taste and what we like to take photos of, which ends up, yeah, means we're each other's companion on some fun adventures. And he was, yeah, visiting me last week. And I mean, I think that just comes from a search for a little bit more of authenticity. I think here in Barcelona, there's a lot of ways that the monument, I mean, we have amazing monuments, amazing history that attracts a lot of people to this city. It's one of the the biggest problems facing Barcelona is how to deal with the kind of influx of tourism and the continued growth and interest in the city, which is, it's an awesome thing. It's a privilege to live in a city there's so much interest in, but then the flip side of how you manage that interest and how you take care of the tourists. I think there's a lot of ways that either the city or the various commercial interests kind of take advantage of the beauty in some of these old monuments. And so I think there's so much around them that my dad and I don't love to kind of sit in that, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously we'll go, I'll take him to some of the, he has to see it, but I think he's really curious just in his traveling. And same with me, we're just curious about how people just live in different places of the world. And you don't really see the culture, you don't see people, you don't see how they use their space and build their environment if you go just straight up into some of the more touristy areas. It's kind of, you have to get all of it. And we really, both seek out the kind of fringes. I think for me, the underutilized space is such a opportunity. I think there's a lot of ways we don't use space efficiently in the city, and those kind of quieter spaces, maybe a little dingier like spaces. I think we both see a lot of beauty in that and see a lot of opportunity in that in terms of just making environments just little positive changes for the people that live there, and then the kind of capturing also the authenticity and the beauty of those spaces is what drew us off the, I don't know, a little further onto the edges of the map, I guess is what you could say.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting how like your career has been forming also into your hobby, kind of, like taking photography on skate parks and like this whole, spirit of like DIY skate parks in Barcelona. Could you share a little bit more of that, or like your favorite moment or photo? We can just put your favorite photo of like the DIY skate parks. Like how did this begin in Barcelona?
Well, I mean, the DIY skate movement has kind of, skating has always been a little bit of a, you're taking space in the city and using it in a way that most of the population doesn't fully understand or get. And so it's kind of a continuation and involving of that idea of how can we make a space to do what we love to do, and how can we make the city more, carve out space in the city that are accepting of that activity. I mean, again, like the underutilized space, the DIY movement is like, I think one of the coolest ways of dealing with a space that maybe is overlooked or forgotten and not currently used by people. Like a lot of skaters will look at, I mean, you look at the city a completely different way when you're used to sliding around on four wheels and a little bit of wood.
Yeah.
And that kind of shift in perspective makes you see the opportunity in spaces differently. And so my favorite, I guess, favorite moment or photo, I have some amazing, I have so many because that's what my focus has been. But I think maybe my literally like one of the first days, one of my good friends, Lucia, who I now live with, she was skating at Picnic DIY, which is I think one of the most welcoming spaces that I've been to in Barcelona, and it ended up being kind of the catalyst for most of my friends that I've made and spend time with here. There's a photo of Lucia just doing a simple, I think maybe a 50 slide across this little home, I mean, DIY piece of transition that we were all just taking turns doing figuring out things to I think it speaks to, for me, it's really important, the layers of acceptance of people kind of curious about the space. I was welcomed in as an outsider. When I walked up to Picnic the first time, I was a bit of a kook. I brought my surf skate. I wasn't even like a skater at that time. Instead of I don't know, making fun of the kook from America on a surf skate at this pretty I don't know, there's some high level of skating at that park, and I lucked out and was really welcomed in by the community. And that's just kind of the people that spend time there are always available to lift people up. And whether it's literally lift the community up by building a space like that, or just helping a newbie learn some tricks and maybe some style at the same time too.
Yeah, nice.
They'd be like, hey, do you really want to wear those short shorts, man? And I don't know. I don't know. The community lifts up everyone in the space in many ways. So that's kind of some of the magic.
And it's also crazy that the DIY skate parks, I mean, it's not just in Barcelona, right? But it's worldwide. But it's so interesting. When I went to Picnic, I remember just seeing people constructing a ramp, or it was out of the blue, or they So I don't know the story of Picnic, but it seems like it was just like everything was built by them, right? It seems like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it was a group of skaters, some of them from England and the UK, and then some local skaters here in Barcelona that kind of had been skating together there. Here in Barcelona, there's so many examples of great DIYs. Like Spotter is probably the biggest, or I think most people know of Spotter. But Picnic, there's Caribou up north in Metro, and then even Orins de Mont is up in, I might be saying that pronunciation may not be correct, but it was one of the first skate parks in Spain, just period.
Which one?
Arenys de Mont.
Arins de Mont.
Arenas de Mont. I don't know. We'll see if that's the right pronunciation. I can send you the name of it.
Wait,
but it's not
first.
super. Yeah.
Wait. I want to see it in Spain.
I believe it's one of the first in Spain.
Arins de Mont. Arins de Mont. Oh wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Is it that?
Yeah, Arins de Mont. Wow. It's crazy. I didn't know that Arenys de Munt was the first skate park in Spain. And it's close to Barcelona?
It's a little bit of a trek. So nowadays, it's unfortunately, there's been some really crazy history with that specific park where initially, it was it was the first one. And it's these banks, because back in the day, pretty much was just trying to emulate surfing. So it's pretty much just this big kind of rectangle with some banks on it. And then they had some cool transition. But again, like the evolving perception of skating from the outside in, it changed, and they filled those transition, that some of the city government filled those kind of bowls at one point. There was also a snake run that's there. So it's all these like kind of cool vestiges of skating history that at one point it was filled, and then they took all the dirt out, they excavated it and saved it. It's been this kind of evolving space. Now I wouldn't say it's just a little bit out of the way. It's like I think an hour and a half with the train and bus to get up there.
Yeah.
But I went once and it was beautiful. It was a cool space.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. And I also wanted to ask, like, what's the role that the community, engages and plays with your design processes? Because I have seen your designs and some of them are very playful to lay around or to sit, or, how does the community play a role in these?
I mean, in the design process, it's the best. The proper way to do it is to interact first with the community and address their needs and see what their needs are. If you don't have that initial kind of community outreach, community engagement, and really a quality attempt at that, you're flying completely blind and making 1,000 assumptions if you don't do that. It's always got to start with community engagement and outreach. Any kind of project scale wise, like whatever design I'm working on, I'm always trying to figure out like from what part of the community needs to be engaged, and then it ends up being kind of more of a quality design and more of a used design if you end up addressing their needs. I think there's always room for kind of Bjarke Ingels. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's one of these architects. He's a really well-known architect from Denmark. He has this approach to design where he includes like a gift giving. He says he wants to always in his project always having a kind of additional gift to the area, to the city, to the people that use that space beyond what the initial like kind of just criteria for the project are. Like he kind of always adds that little extra magic, or tries to add that extra magic. He's evolved in that. Sometimes he does it, but that's kind of something that I like to also try to think about is that concept of like what else beyond the needs, like what's the extra like kind of fun you can inject into something, into a space.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's amazing. Does he have like a book or something?
Oh, he's got a couple of books.
Nice.
No, there's some good. I think I have all of them in Seattle.
Oh, really?
I was a bit of a super fan for a while. My thoughts on Bjarke are overwhelmingly positive. I think some of his projects are super inspirational in terms of how you can approach kind of cities and the kind of looking at the future of what could be with a really positive light. I think a lot of his projects, you can think about the future really optimistically.
Yeah, that's amazing. And make this street fun, like you said, like somehow gives like a gift, you know, of like, ooh, like I have a super cool place to lay around, or like, yeah, that's super interesting. And I was checking out your work, and I saw the 42 street parklet.
Second Street Parklet. That's
Yes,
my
42nd. Second street parklet. Like
yeah.
it seems so cool. So basically it's a parking spot and you guys basically did like a park there.
Yeah.
Like where is it exactly? How did this happen?
So that was kind of after COVID summer. My best friend and I, my first best friend Jack Allnut in Seattle, we lived on 42nd Street, and we lived across the street from a school. And the whole kind of year we were there, we saw this street had a bit of a problem with it's a wide one. It had a lot of space, and so there was cars that were speeding. The city's approach was putting speed bumps in, but the really real problem with that street was the width. It kind of created there's a lot of kids going through that area. It created some dangerous speed situations. And so we both got COVID, and like one of our habits like that we did, we both, he's a architect and design builder. So he has a lot of carpentry experience, and I have a lot of like sculpture and woodworking experience. And the two of us would, in Seattle, there's tons of pallets laying around, all this like wood and construction waste that we would like see opportunities in and build with. And so we had a stockpile of that, and we both got COVID, and we were like, well, we can't really do much right now. We might as well just like build this right in front of our apartment. And it was this space to kind of reduce the width of the street, to kind of reduce speed, vehicle speeds. Because I mean, if you have a little bit of a bottleneck in a street, the driver's intuition is to slow down.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a really nice space for parents to like sit, or kids to sit while they're waiting for their kids at drop off or something like that. So and it wasn't a massive change, but it was just like a little kind of pop of positivity and community interaction. We had planters around the whole perimeter of it, so there was a little bit of a attempt at starting a kind of a community gardening, kind of urban gleaning situation with some edible arrangements of sorts. And we had like some tomatoes and carrots and
Wow.
lettuce. I don't know. We had some fun with all the little touches. But
And
yeah,
how
the
long
parklet.
did it last?
So
Is
it
it
lasts.
still there?
It is not still there, and it's in I'll give you a photo. The beautiful design did not end up lasting. I think Jack put a lot of work into a stool that was really cute, and immediately it was stolen the first night.
No.
So there's some interesting issues of like what you put in the street. Like sometimes it has to weigh enough to make it kind of not very fun to walk away with. But no, it lasted for a good summer. It was a solid summer, but unfortunately, I was teaching a class here in the Netherlands actually that summer. So I left my baby, and it was unattended. And at some point, someone, I don't know exactly if it was the city, because this was also it's tactical urbanism. So this thing was not permitted. Like you can go through a permitting process in the city of Seattle now to do a parklet officially, but we decided to skip that $1,500 process in a couple months. We didn't really want to deal with that, so we just put it out.
Did it?
We
Yeah.
just did it. So at some point, being untended, I think the city ended up taking it out after like 6 months or so.
Well, the intention was there. Who knows?
Lots of fun. Yeah, it needs I mean, when you build something, maintenance is an incredibly important part of any design, and how you're going to keep kind of facilitating the care of that space.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, I abandoned it, which I think was its downfall.
Who knows? Maybe in the future you're going to get to do.
There's been different iterations since, but there haven't been. I moved here, so maybe at some point someone will be inspired, and the 42nd Parklet will make a return.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Can't wait to see that.
Exactly.
And talking about the 42nd Street Parklet, do you see like the urban design as a tool for activism somehow?
Totally. Well, I mean, a parklet, it was originally kind of a tool for active. It was the original parklet was done in San Francisco as kind of a protest about how we're essentially kind of giving streets up to whoever can pay for it. Like They've
Yeah.
just paid the meter for a parking space in San Francisco and built a little parklet temporary thing. So it's kind of the whole impetus of the movement was activism. And I think tactical urbanism, not asking for permission or going through the usual channels to interact with your city and your space, public space, I think is really, really powerful. I think you have to be very intentional and be very empathetic when you make this. You have to think about the implications of what you're doing to change the space. I think generally when there's a positive intent and effort to keep interacting and maintaining the work that you do in a public space, I think tactical urbanism can be a really powerful way to let your city planners and let your government know that there's this deficiency in terms of what the city is doing for you. And taking it into your own hands is a way of, I think, calling attention to that issue. I mean, there's people that do. I really love the bike lanes. There's people that they literally make their own bike lanes because they don't have a safe place to ride their bike. But I mean, it's as simple as a bench, like at a bus stop. If there's no bench at a bus stop, that is a big obstacle to riding the bus. If you can't even sit down while you wait. Little things like that can make a big difference to the people who use that part of the city. I think it's a really great way of calling attention, and it can be definitely an activist, I guess, activity. Go there.
And I see that you also, sketch a lot. How is sketching as a foundation for your creativity and process, like your creative process?
Yeah, no, my sketchbook goes everywhere with me. It's just like photography is a way of me understanding the world. It's, I think, a way of me kind of taking it that extra step further of like photography. You take the photo. Again, for me, it's a little bit of like I want to understand what I'm doing and taking the time to compose and to really see that space or that person, that moment helps my brain process it. And then taking it to the next level is like when I sketch a scene, I'm really sitting in that space or that place and that. And for me, it's like fundamental with how my brain works with urban design, and it's just how you understand it. And then also taking it to the next level of like prototyping what you're doing to try to solve some of the issues or improve the space. If you're trying to work on a design, I find it so much more comfortable, and my process really depends on sketching out my ideas, because the way you can kind of rapidly prototype with that, like if you sketch something and no, that's not quite, you can poke holes through it in such more, I don't know if real time. It's also so conversational with other designers. I think it's super important to be able to like quickly represent something that's in my head. Well, like you might say something and I might hear it and think two different, like we might, oh yeah.
Different
For
things.
instance, like a bike, how is a bike lane going to go on the street? And like you're thinking like in one way and I'm thinking it a completely different way. And so when you're rapidly kind of conversing with someone and being able to sketch it out quickly, it's super, super helpful. So yeah, I love my sketching ability is something that I like cherish quite a bit. I didn't realize how useful and nice it was until really I kind of came here and did my master's program. It was really useful. It really came into its own, and I've been really inspired here to kind of keep improving just my technical ability at it and practicing as much as I can.
Yeah, definitely.
But I will say I have to shout out Jack Olna again, best friend back in Seattle. I would not be sketching like I'm sketching without him. So he's the one that taught me a lot of those fundamentals on technical sketching architecturally. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just like getting your head literally in the paper and seeing, like, I don't know. And do you usually sketch what you're seeing, or you sketch what you're seeing and then you create something new,
It's both. I mean, I think most of my sketches here are that, unless I have, again, I'm working in that area. And then once I have a project for our master's project, we spent a ton of time in this area of Poblenou, and I sketched it quite a bit. And then at that point, I had already kind of absorbed and understood it at a certain level. That's when I was able to then start sketching what could be in some ways. Like I rarely will just immediately sketch something new, like in a space. I'll usually sketch the space and through that kind of process, understand it a little bit better to then think about how it could be different.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think, or do you plan, as you started like skating and getting yourself introduced into this world by doing also photography and stuff, like do you see yourself doing some urban designs for like future skate parks, like that work really well, or like I don't know, like certain specific things, or not really?
No, I mean, I think there's two ways with urban design that I see like skating. I think again, really doubling down on how like the DIY skate culture or even just skate culture can improve underutilized space is one of the things I'll definitely take into the practice. If I have, for instance, a site that has a space that is struggling in some way that has potential to be skated, I'm gonna argue quite a bit to make that skatable. And then also
Yeah.
like just a little bit like every time like I have something, if when I have the opportunities to insert something that's skatable, I'll definitely try to, even if it's not necessarily like advertised as skating, I'll slip it in to get some cool spots. Because now, I mean, again, it's like that switch of like how you perceive a
The
space in an
street.
environment. Yeah, this exactly
Yeah.
the street, like all the elements that you can put in that are skatable, like that until you skate, you don't realize are a skatable thing. I think I'll definitely try to sprinkle in little
Yeah.
nuggets because it again, I love how it either intentionally or intentionally Barcelona has become so skatable as a city with all its banks and all of the different um, just ways the topography and the city's different layers of development have added up. All the skatable spots like add such an element of richness to the city that when I do work elsewhere, I'm definitely going to try to add some of that magic.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe, well, who knows? Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe like if you wouldn't have started skating, you wouldn't have been having these like thoughts now, like maybe you have, I don't know, like you said, like as a skater, you see the street in a different way with the different eyes. So combining like skating with like urban design and your masters, and it's just like this massive combo of like seeing the street with like such a different perspective, also with your photography. So it's so interested, like the whole persona that you are, like it's just like, I think it's just like the perfect combination, like for urban design. And you, I don't know, like it also inspired by like, skating and stuff. It's really interesting how a hobby or like a sport, I wouldn't even call maybe skating a sport. Is it a sport?
It's a sport and it's a way of life. It's an art. I think it's all of that. Like there's ways again, like everyone. I think it's a self expression, and I think you can express yourselves, and you can express it as a sport. You can express it as art. You can express it as just who you are, a part of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's the kind of convergence of all of my passions and things that get me going is really I lucked out, and I think that's the staying power of this city is like the convergence of all of the different things that I value so much in my life and bring me so much joy and curiosity. I think it all ended up, I don't know how I got so lucky. It's pretty crazy. I didn't expect this
Yeah.
when I showed up to Barcelona, and yeah, where I'm at now, more than a year and a half into this journey. It's not where I imagined I'd be, but I love where I'm at with again
Yeah.
like all the different things I'm exposed to in exploring myself.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So, and also talking about your photography or urban design, do you have like any dream collaborator that you wanna, or I don't know, maybe take photos for professional skaters, or do you see yourself in that line or not really? I see also that you do a lot of like analog. You love like analog work, but also digital, I think. But yeah, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about more.
No, okay, yeah. So like in terms of I guess photography goals that I have for myself and dreams and aspirations, I definitely, I mean, here in Barcelona, it's really funny. Sometimes I inadvertently take photos of pros already. Like I've got some professional skater friends, and like sometimes you'll be skating with them out and about. Like I got my camera everywhere. I always bring it with me, and I'll be like, oh, I'm taking photos of a professional skateboarder, like without even kind of meaning to, with the people that kind of, I don't know, it's this fun
Bump.
community where people bump in, bump out. But I guess my goals with the photography right now, one of them is I want to get some of my work printed in a magazine of sorts. There's a couple skate magazines that I really hold to high esteem in terms of how they portray the sport, kind of portray stories of people. It's not as, there's the kind of commercialization of skating that's, I mean, very late stage of that at this point. Like it's part of it, and it's cool because it lets people have lives through skating. But there's I really love just the intersection of, again, like the intersection of skating and art also interests me quite a bit, and the people that like what did people do with skating and how do they incorporate it in their art? Just like these questions that you're kind of the flip side of what you're saying. Like that fascinates me. And there's magazines that kind of delve into that. So I'd love to work with some of them. I also miss snowboarding a bit. So at some point I'd love to go on some snowy adventures. There's some pretty amazing adventures in my future with that. So I'd love to do some snowboarding and some skiing photography. And then, I mean, in terms of dream collaboration, like I'm collaborating photography, like in photography with so many amazing people. I think more with urban design. At some point would love to work with Gell Architects. Gell is a Danish firm in Copenhagen and they have offices worldwide, but they just do this amazing, they kind of everything that I love about centering people and their work they do, and they really stand by that with the projects that they end up building. I feel like they don't compromise their morals to get work, which, I mean, it's hard to find and source work, but they've been doing it for so long with this centering people and communities at every project they do. They also really have a focus on public space, and that's my biggest interest with urban design. I would love to work with them at some point. Work for them, work with them. Every project I've been exposed to by them is giving me a lot of stoke.
Nice. That's amazing. Well, we'll see. Maybe in a year you'll listen to this podcast and be like, wow, that dream did come true.
Hopefully. Hell yeah.
Who knows?
I've manifested that.
Yeah.
Be pretty good at manifesting some cool things. So whether I'm aware of it in the future or not, I'm sure there'll be some cool things down the line.
If you could design or photograph any city in the world, which one would it be and why?
I think so much of it is like there's so much focus on the global north right now in terms of like there's so much Western thought, and I'm really curious about breaking out of that now at this point. Like breaking out of Seattle and coming here was a huge eye-opening experience, but the practice is like so, I mean, it's literally like kind of a Western practice in some ways. The like urban planning and urban design, like it injects and kind of sometimes forces this mindset on communities and cities. And there's so much work on the urbanization of a lot of cities on the African continent or in South America. There's so much urbanization happening at such a massive rate that there's a big opportunity to get a head start on not repeating a lot of like the mechanization of transportation, specifically car like dependency in those cities, and by building the right density and building the right kind of decentralization of amenities to kind of have it be like have your needs be met everywhere in the cities. So I think I don't have an exact answer. I really want to photograph Tokyo. I'm really fascinated by that. Just insanity of how many people are there, and the fact that that culture is just so different, and how I don't have a strong understanding of it, but from far it looks insane from an urban perspective. But I would like to kind of, in terms of urban design work, I think I'd like to help eventually areas kind of jumpstart their kind of approach to how are they going to make their city healthy, how are they going to grow in a way that becomes a kind of a more ideal scenario of breaking away from car dependency and not falling into some of the traps. I would love to come to Monterey.
You should check out the urban situation here.
No, I mean, I think what I would love to do, like, really is there's so much, like, the Barcelonas, the Paris, the London, like you've heard all these New York City, like these big cities, and there's so much focus on them, and they have problems, and they're improving their problems. There are people working on those, but I would love to also like break out from those kind of main cities, urban centers, and there's I mean, the world is urbanizing at a massive clip, and if we can start to kind of get a jump on if you're growing as a city, like how are you growing, and in what ways can you again grow in a healthy way, in a sustainable way, in a way that creates an equitable situation for your citizens.
Nice.
I don't
That's
have
amazing.
So that's what I think. 2 cents. More than 2 cents. But
so a little bit of a pause. I need to leave in like 15 minutes.
Okay.
So I think we're about to close. Like we only have 2 questions. No, 3 questions, I think. Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah. And, what advice would you give to someone exploring like urban design or even like documentary photography? Because I know when I met you, like you were taking your camera everywhere, you were taking pictures all the time. Like, how did this become a habit? I feel like sometimes carrying your camera with you at the beginning could be a little hard to make it as a habit. But also, like, inside the photography, like, I'm so intrigued on, like, do you just take pictures or do you wait for a certain moment? Do you look for a certain specific spot? I mean, taking pictures with skaters, it's always like, oh, they're doing like this certain trick and like they have to jump and, but yeah, how is it
Totally.
like this advice? My long question.
No, it's good. No. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I mean, having that habit of taking the camera with you and having a camera that you want to take with you is really important. I think for me, the value of, especially when I look back through my photos of having all of these moments captured, it's like literally like I've almost offloaded or kind of like I've given my mind a break from remembering things, and I have like my memory like as this like kind of collection of work in some ways. And having those moments is like truly like so invaluable. Like being able to look back and just be transported back to that space, and then it's such a valuable thing. And that's kind of, I think, for me, like one of the ways, if you're just starting out, like in questioning what's the value in this practice, like, oh man, this is just a little bit of extra time, a little extra friction in my life. Like that's kind of where I think the value of like putting that work in. I mean, it ends up being some work, but I think having those memories and those moments captured for you, you don't even know the value of it until later. But it will have a pretty significant value. That's kind of why you got to bring it with you everywhere. And then for skating, I mean, the technique, skating, it's awesome because the more I've progressed with skating, like myself, like being able to skate, the more that I've been able to capture skating, I think in a more authentic and more, I think, accurate way. Like initially you're drawn to the form, the story, like the storytelling of people are just hucking themselves off, trying and failing, doing something risky. And there's a beauty to that. But for skaters, like when you look at a skating photo, especially pre like video, and now that all the videos that we have, like pre-Instagram, pre-video parts, like magazines were the way that skating was documented and the culture was documented. And you needed to take a photo of a trick in a certain way so that someone viewing the photo that's not moving could know what the trick was. And so that's where like the decisive moment for skating is really important. And that's something I've been learning is like for each trick, if you're going to capture it with a photo, like there's a way to tell other, like someone looking at that photo, what the trick was. So not only are you thinking about like how to capture the skater in the environment with the right focal length, with the right like width, and to tell the story of where they are and place them, you also need to kind of timing the trick and where you're at to be able to have it be understand in a photo format. You can I've taken a lot of what I think are amazing photos of my friends skating, and they'll always be like, but my board isn't in that position, the trucks aren't on the coping in the right way, I needed to be taking it just a slightly different. I mean, and initially when you start out photographing skating, you take so many like just someone's butt and you don't get their face, and it's just like you didn't realize that they were going to go front side when they went backside, and like there's a lot of need for you want to kind of communicate with whoever's skating when you're taking their photo of what their plan is and what they're doing, so that you can then take that photo at the correct moment and from the correct side. I don't know. There's so many layers, and I love it's so enriching for me the way that the more I've learned how to skate myself and to do some of these tricks and some of these maneuvers, the more I'm better at understanding it in a way how to capture it. But it's kind of a specific thing to skating. Like I think even attempting to capture it is still worthwhile. You're capturing that moment that you're in. You're capturing the people you're with. Your travels through this world. So yeah, get after it.
Get after it. Just take pictures.
Just take photos. It's not that hard. Go digital first though. Don't do film first. As amazing as film is, I love the medium of film, but it's not necessarily film. And it doesn't have to be a good digital camera. Just whatever you have. Your phone is also great. I personally like doing a dedicated camera because I struggle a little bit with some of the phones like you just have so much distraction in there. And I like having a tool that's like just like this is I'm taking a photo with this thing.
Yeah.
And so
there's a beauty of it, right? Like the phone.
An intention, I think.
Yeah, like I feel like the phones are just like in our pockets the whole time, and you can take a picture whenever. And there's a beauty from the like carrying a camera with you, and just like, I don't know, it gives it this like nostalgic kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, well, you don't need to. I mean, because again, your phone. I wish I liked taking photos with my phone more because it'd be
Yeah.
convenient as hell, and it's small, and in some ways it disrupts the moment less. Like you impact the moment less. Like whoever you're taking the
Yeah.
photo of isn't like, oh, I'm getting a photo taken. It's just like whatever, and it's your phone. But like,
Yeah.
the intention I think behind having like just having a camera with you is just like so nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I got a last question for you that I'm asking everybody that I'm interviewing.
Mhm.
It's basically, what is something you cannot live long without?
That's such an obvious answer, but that's stupid. I'm not going to go camera or sketchbook, because that would be too easy.
What would happen if you cannot use a camera for like 2 weeks or something?
I mean, it would be a good
Do you use
exercise.
it every single day?
Definitely, yeah. No, I make like
Yeah.
I mean, with my digital camera, I'm probably taking like at least 40 or 50 photos a day, and then like,
Whoa.
I mean, that's like on just a day that I don't have anything special going. I mean, Barcelona, I feel like every day is special to some extent, but like,
And what do you do with all these pictures?
well, that's the good thing. I have a different theme. I don't know. I have like a collection. My archive is pretty. It's constantly growing, constantly expanding, and it's you kind of change with every viewing of a photo. There's different meaning that you kind of take out from it. So I have like lots of different projects and like things in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Lots of collections of different compilations of photos from different moments. So yeah.
And where do you keep them? A hard drive? Or
Yeah,
just
I was
like in
talking
the
to my dad about this. No, I am living life a little bit on the edge where I have redundancy in my storage, but it's all local, so it's all hard drives. And I at some point should do a little cloud, but you don't. I think if you're really on it with the local storage, and having redundancy, if something doesn't exist unless it's in multiple places. So
Yeah.
yeah, and be careful with your laptop because I had a certain laptop get stolen with some pretty valuable memories on it at one point. So now I was on it with the photo storage, not on it with my master's work, but
yeah.
we live and we learn, and yeah,
Yeah.
be careful with your.
Yeah. Henry, it was amazing talking to you. I think, I don't know, just like, yeah, like I was so intrigued, you know, like on your perspective and on your blah, blah. I was so intrigued on the combination of the person that you are, just because you have like these different points of views, and you know, you study urban design and then the masters, and you know, skating and photography. And I feel like also photography, it's a big part, because photography, it seems like you're seeing things with a different lens that with a normal, you know, what would normal people see it, you know? And I feel like it's so interesting. I really appreciate your time and, you know, sharing everything with us, and I don't know, just like getting inspired from other creators out there, you know, in some way.
Thank you. No, I get so inspired by you. I mean, again, like you're part of the reason why this city and skate. I mean, I met you skating at Marbella.
Yeah.
And you've shown me some amazing parts of this city with your residency when you were here in Novostik, and like opening up that whole world has been awesome. So I don't know. This is like what for me is so important, so intoxicating about like here in Barcelona, and just in general being an artist is the people you connect with, and the different ways that we all view the world and try to find meaning and explore it. So I love thank you for having me on this. This is
of course.
it's a fun challenge.
Of course.
And I love seeing you get after it. You're getting out like everything you're doing to push yourself and others is awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Henry. Thank you. And for all the listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends, and you can find the rest of the chats and other episodes in our YouTube channel, akaystreetart, for more inspiring conversations. And you're gonna find Henry's Instagram in the description, so you can check out his amazing work. And you know, you can even reach out if you want to do a collaboration also, who knows. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Ciao.
Thank you guys. Take care.